So all the supplies that you're going to need, of course, your glass blocks. You're going to want your glass block mortar, reinforcement ladder, also your galvanized steel brackets, expansion joints, trowel, and sponge. You want to mix your mortar in a bucket. You don't want to mix very much because you only want to mix it as much as you can use in about 20 minutes. Mix the mortar mix so it's sandy, but not too crumbly and not too wet. Something that'll hold its shape and won't fall apart when you put the glass block onto it. So for your first course, basically, you want to have a good layer of mortar between the sill plate and your glass block. You want to put a good amount of mortar on there, about as much as, I believe, about 1/4 of an inch between your glass blocks and your sill plate. Use your trowel and just simply generously put it onto the sill plate and just follow along with that. It's not very difficult to do this. Make sure you have your spacers at hand. You want to have some L spacers and T spacers as well as your regular spacers. Have mortar on the sill plate. You want to put your L spacer up along the wall and simply press your block into the spacer. Again, leaving about 1/4 of an inch between the block and the sill plate. Remove the excess mortar and continue on with the second block. You want to make sure that every block is level. I recommend doing this individually just to make sure, especially with the first course, to make sure that everything is level. And then when you feel that it's level and true, move on to your second block. You want to butter up the side with the mortar, and then this will basically be the mortar that goes between the two blocks. Once you have the mortar onto the block, you want to make sure that your spacer's in place. Using a T spacer between the two, make sure your spacer is in place, and simply press the block into place and press it up against the adjacent block. Again, you want to make sure that every block, especially on the first course, is level, and once you feel that it's level, you can move on. Put your spacers in place and finish your first course. To leave your first course finished, you want to make sure that your spacers are in properly and not upside down as you see here. You want to have your expansion joint up along the wall, which is that white piece of styrofoam. Basically, it allows the blocks to expand and contract without cracking the mortar. You also want to use your reinforcement ladder, which will be pressed into the layer of mortar between the two blocks, between the two courses of blocks. This will make sure that the mortar doesn't crack as well. Keep your blocks clean as you move on, and that way you won't have a difficulty for removing the mortar when it's dry. Using your wall bracket, you want to screw this into the wall. It's basically a galvanized steel bracket that you bend into shape, and it'll ensure that the blocks don't fall over if somebody leans on them or wobble from side to side. You want to make sure that you screw that into the wall securely and just cover it over with mortar, and make sure that when you use your reinforcement ladder that you overlap with about 6 inches, and again that'll just make sure that the mortar doesn't break, and it just keeps the wall strong, so if somebody does lean on it, it won't break. So you want to work hard and fast. Make sure that you work quickly enough that the mortar doesn't set up when you're working. Be sure that all your spacers are in place when you're doing your work, and always make sure that you're leveling your blocks after every course. This can be glass blocks can be fairly frustrating because it's basically tiling with the third dimension, and it can get a little bit frustrating. Just keep your head about you, and before you know it, you'll have a finished product. And all you have to do is clean it up and seal it, and you're done.